Hello, welcome to Sports World. Have your say on BBC World News on this very sad day for anybody who loves football. We'd normally, of course, be talking about the action on the pitch at this time on a Sunday. But the news of the death of the Wales manager, Gary Speed, apparently through suicide, has overshadowed everything. Gary played 535 times in the Premier League for Leeds, Everton, Newcastle and Bolton, and 85 times for his country Wales. But today he was found dead at his home at the ridiculously young age of 42. We're going to be spending the next hour paying tribute to him from you, the fans, as well as his fellow pros and colleagues. Some of you have been asking whether football as a sport takes care of its people in difficulty. We'll be reflecting that debate, and you can join in, as always, on the phone, on email, Twitter, Facebook and Skype. The team are waiting to speak to you. But before we go any further, let's get a summary of the latest news. You're watching Sports World, Have Your Say. I've got Leroy Rosenior with me in the studio this week as we pay tribute to the Wales manager Gary Speed, who apparently killed himself in the early hours of Sunday morning. He was 42.
Hopefully he will talk to you.
What is this? Wales manager Gary Speed, MB, along with the world of football, we're devastated by this sad news, and our thoughts and prayers are with Gary's family at this time. Gary Speed enjoyed a fantastic career. He remains the most capped outfield player for Wales, having appeared 85 times at senior level. He played professionally for Leeds United, Everton, Newcastle, Bolton and Sheffield United, with an amazing 535 appearances in the Premier League. He was enjoying outstanding success as Wales team manager, and our thoughts are also with those Welsh internationals on duty today for both Swansea City and Aston Villa. In the great tradition of the great game of football, I'd like to ask you now to stand and remember Gary Speed with a minute's silence.
It is a sad day. I played with him when I just came through the ranks and made my debut for Bobby Robson, and obviously, like I said, Speedo, who was who all helped me through and helped the young lads through. He was an absolute machine, best professional in football. So it's just a sad day.
I remember my school team in Sheffield. We were fortunate enough to wear the Leeds kit with a top man on the front. I remember wearing it. He was an absolute legend, and to have had the opportunity to work with him, I think all players that played alongside him learned something. It's just devastating, really.
As a footballer, from one day to the next, you can be moving from one part of the country to another part of the country, and your family tow behind you, and you get on with them things. And as people rightly say, we are very privileged. People going about the financial gain for football, and it's very true. The sums that the footballers earn are magnificent. But there always is a price to pay along the way, and you just hope that something like this is something that would never happen again.
It was fantastic to actually see, especially the last few games, that those visions he had as a manager for what he wanted to do for his country and his team and his players coming to fruition. He was not just as a manager and as a coach. He was a player's manager and a player's coach, but as a teammate. I mean, he was. Bear in mind, he was captain of Wales when the likes of Mark Hughes and Ian Rush were still playing.
He was a star in the truest sense, and for him at 42 to leave us is such a tragic loss.
Tributes being paid to Gary Speed, who's died at the age of 42. I've got Leroy Rosenior with me here in the studio, and the Football Focus presenter Dan Walker joins us on the line from Sheffield. Dan, Gary was a guest in your studio just yesterday. What's your reaction to this news?
Hi, Amanda. Hi, Leroy. Yeah, like most people, I think I was so taken aback when I first heard it earlier. There was no indication that there was anything wrong yesterday. Amanda, he was, in fine fettle. I've met him and interviewed him on many occasions, and he was sort of life and soul of the party yesterday. He was cracking gags with his old Leeds United midfield teammate that they won the title with in 1992. Gary McAllister was on the programme too. He was talking about his future, taking care of Wales, trying to get them to qualify for the 2014 World Cup. He was talking about how much he loved his kids after the programme and the fact that his children were turning out to be quite good footballers in themselves. He was talking about playing golf. He was saying, let's get on the course soon. After the programme, Match of the Day comes from the same building, and we took him upstairs, and Alan Shearer, one of his good friends from his playing days, was up there, so they had a good chat. We watched the football together, the Stoke-Blackburn game. And then, Alan Shearer went off to Old Trafford. I said goodbye to Gary, and I said, be great to see you again. Thanks for coming on today. And he said, yeah, no problem. Bring me whenever you like, and hopefully I'll be able to come on before Christmas. And then I left, said my goodbyes, and then this morning I got a phone call to say, have you heard the awful news about Gary? So, understandably, quite a tough one to take, really, when you consider that he's one of those people that it's hard not to look up to, because he's achieved so much. He's so well liked at all the teams he's played for. And I know it's easy to talk about people like this once they're gone, but he genuinely was well liked, loved in football. And you can tell that from the tributes you've just heard on your programme. And, you go on any website and there's people saying how good a player he was, how nice he was. He always asked questions about you, which I think is a guide to whether a person is, whether they're just sort of selfish and look after themselves, or whether they actually care about others. And Gary was one of those who always asked you how you were, how your family were, that sort of thing. And I think there's a big hole in football now that he's gone. And, I'm not alone in saying that I will miss him, but I genuinely think that the football family has shed a few tears today, and it's desperately sad to know that somebody who still had so much to give at the age of 42 and loved his family and was, professionally had perhaps the best years of his managerial career ahead of him. I think it's so sad to think that Gary's now gone.
Dan, I totally agree with everything you just said there, but you talk about all the tributes that have come in for Gary. I've met Gary just a couple of times, and I can honestly say that all the tributes I've heard today, I heard while he was alive. That people said incredibly nice things about him because he was an incredibly nice person. Now, his career was absolutely fantastic, over 500 games in the Premier League, 85 caps for Wales. But I think the biggest thing that has come through was not that not only did he get the best out of himself, but he had this knack of getting the best out of other people, especially young people. He had this affection and this link with young people, which was innate. And so for the young people of Wales, he was a fantastic role model. How big a miss is he going to be for the young people of Wales?
I think it's huge. I mean, even yesterday, you saw it outside of football. There was a young lad working on our production team of Football Focus yesterday, and he happened to mention, he's obviously slightly in awe of Gary. He said, you went to the same school as me, Gary, in North Wales. And all of a sudden they start, chewing about the fact that the Queen came to the school, and Michael Owen went to the same school as Gary Speed, and there's a picture in reception of the Queen, and Gary Speed's on the left and Michael Owen's on the right. And it was just, chatting away as if he'd known this guy for such a long time, and they'd met about 5 seconds previously. And I think, again, Leroy, with footballers as well, you look at that young Wales side, how many of those have come out today and said how much they will miss him and how pivotal he's been in their career? Because they weren't on the brink of greatness, but they were on the brink of doing something special and qualifying for a major tournament, because there was there's a real confidence now flowing through Welsh football as they go into this next World qualifying campaign, because they've won 4 out of 5. There's lots of young players playing in the Premier League, doing the business, and really playing some of their best football. And most of that has come under Gary Speed. When he took over, it was all doom and gloom, and he stuck to his task. He said yesterday, I asked him, what was the key? We did a little programme after we'd finished Football Focus, a little 10-minute piece about just specifically about Wales and answering people's questions that they'd sent in on Twitter for Gary. And he said, the one thing I've done is I've stuck to my guns. I was confident that I knew how to make this team successful, and I've stuck to it. And I've kept with the youth. I know there's young men coming through who can really play this game properly. And that's what he did. And, I listened to Robbie Savage, who was one of his former Wales teammates, saying that he was a hero even to him, who was almost in the same generation as him. And I think that's the way he carried himself. He wonderfully looked after his body. At 42, he probably could have still played the game, and he just had there was a real bounce to him. And yesterday I can genuinely say he was full of life yesterday, and that's why I spoke to Alan Shearer earlier. That's why it came as such just a total and utter shock that somebody who had so much to give decided that he wanted to end it all. And it's desperately sad. It's desperately sad.
Indeed. Dan Walker, thank you so much for your time at this difficult time. Thanks for coming on the programme. Let me bring into the programme Jamie Forrester, a former teammate of Gary Speed, and Rod, who is a Leeds fan. Jamie, Dan touched on there how Gary was a consummate professional both on and off the pitch. What was your experience of him?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd echo the thoughts of everyone. I mean, I was 18, 19, back in the early 90s at Leeds, and Gary was in his early 20s. He was somebody I looked up to, somebody I was hoping to be at that time. I was lucky enough to play with him on a few occasions. I actually roomed with him on a couple of away trips, and he was a role model to me. Fantastic pro, fantastic player, and he was obviously on the road to being a fantastic manager. And he was the sort of person that I wanted to be. He was the sort of person that blokes wanted to be like. Women loved him. He was a real people person, and that's what makes it even more sad that everyone now is saying such great things about him.
Jamie, Dan was just talking about when Gary Speed walked into a room, he sort of lit up the room. But he wasn't that big, was he? He was under 6 foot, and what an athlete he was. He looked, and when you met him, you just couldn't believe that he was under 6 foot, because he jumped. He jumped back 6'5". He had his chest out. He was a magnificent athlete, but also a magnificent person. And I mean, what does it mean to you to not have someone like that to look up to now?
Well, completely correct in what you say. I mean, I played against him a few times throughout my career, and he was always the first person to come over and, like you say, ask how you're doing, ask how things are going. Wish you well for the future, and he didn't have to do that, and it just shows what a great man he was. I mean, like I said, he was one of the fittest players I've ever played with, and like you say, I mean, one of the things people remember him as a player was his aerial ability. I mean, he scored goals with his head that people could only dream about scoring. Certainly, people of my stature. But then, to stand alongside him, he wasn't the tallest of men. So to say that, he certainly achieved everything from his ability, is a massive understatement. And it's just a shame that his managerial career has been cut short too, because he was certainly doing some great things on that front too.
Yeah, we've got lots of you getting in touch with us here at Sports World Have Your Say to pay your tributes to Gary Speed. Please do carry on sending in your messages, maybe sending us a tweet using the hashtag SWHYS, or pick up the phone and give us a call. The number on the side of your screen there. Ollie Thompson has sent us an email basically echoing what people have been saying today. I can't think of a footballer that has had so much respect from teams both played for and against, and this in respect of what such a great man he was. Don't go anywhere, we'll be carrying on the conversation in just a couple of minutes. Hi, welcome back to Sports World Have Your Say. We're reacting to the news that the Wales manager Gary Speed has died at the age of 42. Some news that came in on Sunday morning that has pretty much floored the football world. Xabi Alonso has been tweeting saying, "My first Premier League game was against him. He showed me in that game what British football is about." Simon Church, a current member of the Wales squad, said, "I can't believe it. What a great man and a true Welsh footballing legend. A great inspiration to all. R.I.P. Gary Speed." Well, I've got Leroy Rosenior with me in the studio here. Nick is a Wales fan who joins us on Skype, and Rod is a Leeds fan. Rod, what was your reaction to that news this morning?
Yeah, devastating. I woke up this morning in a good mood, and the first thing that I saw when I turned on the news was there's that news about Gary Speed. It's just totally knocked me back. I still haven't quite got my head around it, if the truth be known, and I probably won't for a few more days.
Rod, just how is Gary Speed viewed by you Leeds fans?
Yeah, Leeds obviously is viewed in high esteem by all fans, but Leeds United fans in particular. I mean, he started out at Leeds, did Gary. He came through the ranks, and he's gone on from there to be the player that he is. And obviously, he's the Wales manager now. He's been a top spot, and it's just such a sad loss. I just cannot believe it. I still can't believe it.
It seems a lot of people just lost for words, and
yeah.
They have been. But his teammates have been in touch. Well, striker Robert Earnshaw says, "I feel so sad. We've lost our manager, our leader, and an extremely great person who's inspired us all in the last year. Rest in peace, Gary Speed." And this one from Tony Dorigo, who played with him in that Leeds team that you're talking about, Robbie. He says, the Leeds team that won the 92 title, "I'm completely shocked and saddened. A great guy and a better teammate you couldn't wish for. Speedo, rest in peace, mate." I think that's the message that we're getting. He was a great teammate, someone that players just love playing alongside.
Yeah, and that's the impression that I got. I mean, I've watched him that year when we won the league, and the photograph that I actually posted on Twitter today, which sort of resulted in me ended up in the studio.
I think we can see that photo now, Rod.
Yeah.
Just explain the picture behind that.
Yeah, that was taken, I think, just before the pre-season, the year that they actually won the league, and I managed to meet him. I was waiting for autographs and meeting players, I think during the holidays, and managed to meet him and a few other players, and they were quite happy to pose for the photograph and give autographs, but it would always like that. I was just saying to my friend earlier, I've never heard a bad word said against Gary Speed, not by players, not by fans. It's just such a devastating loss, and I'm struggling.
Nick, Gary Speed, a legend in the Premier League and in Wales. Just tell us how much he has done for Welsh football in recent times.
Yeah, well, he came in just under a year ago. He had a few bad results to start with, but recently he's picked the team up, and they've risen now 50 places from the last FIFA rankings, and that's the most improved of the international teams.
Nick, I was speaking to Christian Roberts, a teammate of him, earlier on, and he said that in terms of icon, there isn't a bigger icon in Wales. Is that right? Is he the biggest icon in Wales? I mean, you talk about Ryan Giggs, but Christian said for an all-round athlete and true great bloke, he is the Welsh icon.
Yeah, probably non-playing wise, Gary Speed's probably the sort of the best person. A few years ago, we had a good qualifying campaign. Nearly went through to the Euros. I lost to Russia in the end, and he was our captain then. I said he went on to do the manager, and he's doing a great job. He's given, obviously, the captaincy to Aaron Ramsey. And over the last couple of games, they've really picked up and played well.
Well, there's been a fair bit of emotion on the programme already here today, but let's have a listen to this. It's a tribute from Gary Speed's former Wales teammate Robbie Savage, who's been taking part in the entertainment show Strictly Come Dancing.
You know, we had a good chat, we were laughing and joking. You know, he'd been to Strictly Come Dancing in, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he sat in the audience with his wife, and after my routine, I high-fived him in the bar afterwards, got a few drinks, and he was larger than life, and spoke to him yesterday. He was in high spirits, and I can't believe it.
I mean, I watched him on Football Focus yesterday, as many millions did. I talked to Dan Walker, who presented the programme a little earlier. He said there was nothing to suggest any problems, anything untoward at all.
No, nothing at all. I just can't believe it. You know, he's my mate and he's gone. It's like I've gone very close to Gary in the last few years. You know, the guy is a terrific. He's left 2 gorgeous kids behind. You know, he's a beautiful wife. You know, he had everything. He had everything, and I don't know what to say.
Was there anything at all to suggest there may be problems off the field in his private life at all, or anything?
You know, in days of people get called a modern professional, Gary was. You know, the way he lived his life. You know, listen to Dean Saunders, he was one of the fittest guys, looked after his body. You know, the way he conducted himself on and off the field. He was a great teammate, a great manager. You know, nothing spoke to him yesterday, and he was we were laughing and joking. He was saying, make sure you don't get a 2 off Craig tonight. You know, and that's what Gary's like. He always thinks about other people. This is just...
What are some of the best things you remember about Gary Speed on the pitch?
You know, as my captain when, you know, I was a young boy in the squad, and, you know, he'd come to me and just, I could go to my problems and...
Incredibly tough, even harder to comprehend when somebody as close to Gary Speed as Robbie Savage can't explain it. Let's welcome Sean, a Bolton fan, to the programme. What are Bolton fans' views of Gary Speed?
Same as everyone, absolutely heartbroken. Although Gary was only with us for a short amount of time, he was the heart and soul of Bolton Wanderers. He epitomised what we were about under the Sam Allardyce era. You know, I didn't know him as an individual. I'm talking purely from a fan's perspective. As a footballer, he could do everything. He could pass the ball, he'd get stuck in. I think Gary probably even would have admitted that as he got older, he wasn't quickest, but he made up. He definitely made up for it. He had the heart of a lion, and we're all going to miss him. We're all going to miss him deeply. As I was saying earlier, he was first Premier League player to reach 500 appearances, and I'm echoing everyone else when they say, you know, there was never a bad word said about Gary. And in the you know, modern game football, I just wish there was more Gary Speed, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, Sean, the inspiration for everybody is certainly a legacy, but we are going to be carrying on the conversation in just a couple of minutes. Please don't go anywhere. Hello, welcome to Sports World. Have your say on BBC World News on this incredibly sad day for anybody who loves football. We would, of course, normally be talking about the action on the pitch at this time on a Sunday, but the news of the death of Gary Speed, who appears to have killed himself today, has overshadowed everything else. Gary played 535 times in the Premier League for Leeds, Everton, Newcastle and Bolton, and he played 85 times for his country, Wales. But today he was found dead at his home at the incredibly young age of 42. Fans, players and managers have been paying tribute, and some of you have been asking whether football as a sport takes care of its own well enough. We'll be reflecting that debate. You, of course, can join in, as always, on the phone, on email, Twitter, Facebook and Skype. The team are all standing by waiting to speak to you. But before we go any further, let's get a summary of the latest news. Hello, you're watching Sports World. Have your say. Words such as shocked and stunned are often used or overused talking about football and news, but frankly, today that is the case. Everybody stunned by the sudden death of the Wales manager Gary Speed at the age of 42. I've got Leroy Rosenior with me in the studio. We've got Sean, who's a Bolton fan, who joins us on Skype, and Jamie Forrester, who is a former teammate of Gary Speed. Jamie, how would you quantify the impact of Gary Speed on football? Oh, I'm afraid we've lost Jamie. Sean, let me put that to you. Can you quantify Gary Speed's impact on football?
It was massive. As I said, there's not many Gary Speeds around anymore, unfortunately. He's someone who I've idolised. I'm 24 now, from a very young age. Right, you know, my father he speaks very highly of him, and he does sum up a generation. He's been a Premier League basically for the last 10 years until he retired and went to Sheffield United. It was a massive shock today, and you only have to look at the impact he made on the Welsh national team in the short duration he was there to see, you know, how amazing he was, to be honest.
And Leroy, a lot being made of the impact and the time and the effort he took with younger players and bringing them through.
Well, you're talking about the impact of younger players, which I spoke about. I just wanted to talk about the impact he had on all people. You know, Gary was, he had model looks, and he was a top professional and a top footballer. And, you know, with all that, you'd expect some sort of arrogance. But when you met the man, there wasn't an ounce of arrogance in him. He was as humble as they come, and he made you feel really at ease. And I think that's why people who didn't know him that well just felt that they did know him. And that's why I think the world of football has kind of been reduced to tears, because there's not many people like that who can do that. And so it's not just the impact on young people, but the impact he had on everybody. There's not many people who, you know, when you meet them once, you feel that you have some sort of affinity with them. And that was Gary Speed, you know, and in terms of football, there's not many, and, you know, it's such a shame.
Jamie Forrester is back with us, I think. What was Gary Speed like off the pitch?
Well, he was just such a nice bloke. I mean, like I say, I was only a teenager at Leeds when I was in the squad there, and he was the sort of person you go to. You know, he always went out of his way to help you. He couldn't do enough, and he was just liked by everyone. You know. I know that the Leeds manager, Howard Wilkinson, made a great tribute to him. And I think everyone, you know, who knew him is saying the same thing. He was just such a nice man who had time for everyone. A truly great professional. You know, 500 appearances in the Premier League is something that, you know, anybody can hope to achieve. And his managerial career got off to a great start. And unfortunately, we'll never know, you know, what a great manager he could well have turned out to be. I mean, it's just a sad time for football, isn't it? It's
Jamie, I know everybody said, you know, just what a great guy he was, but he just wasn't a great guy. He was the life and soul of the party as well. He loved a laugh and a joke as well, didn't he?
He did. I mean, you know, footballers are renowned for liking a drink, and he's the life and soul of the party. Great character, great sense of humour. He was just a people's person. He could talk on a level with me as a teenager. He could talk on the same level as Howard Wilkinson, who was a manager. He was just that. He just had those people skills that everybody could like. And, you know, like I said earlier, he was the sort of person that I wanted to be, and I think every other bloke wanted to be too.
And Sean, what did you make of the minutes' applause at the two Premier League games which took place today? Were they a fitting tribute in your view?
Yeah, definitely. I've never been a fan of a minute's silence, to tell you the truth. I think you only had to look at the tears on Shay Given's face and the fact that Craig Bellamy pulled out of the game hours beforehand to see, you know, how loved he was within the game. I don't know how they're going to, how he's going to be tributed now, whether they're going to retire the number 6 shirt at Wales. I don't know, but he's going to be missed. And this has sent shockwaves right through football world.
I think that would certainly be a lovely tribute. A lot of people talking about the amount of time that Gary Speed took to talk to them and get involved. And one of those people is the Swansea boss, Brendan Rodgers, who was speaking at their game today.
I think we're all shell-shocked. It was a real bombshell, and to get that piece of information, I thought it was poignant that obviously it came out, and obviously the game was here in Wales, and obviously Gary was a great Welsh man, so it's still hard to take in, to be honest. And I thought both sets of players today put on a terrific game, considering that piece of news, because obviously you had my players who've gone in and loved working with Gary and really enjoyed it, and obviously you get players like Shay Given and who are close friends. So I thought it was a massive respect to both teams in terms of the performance level that they put on for the spectators. But it's very, very difficult to comprehend. And like I say, someone who's such a great player, and also with me coming to Wales, I've had quite a lot of contact with Gary since I've been here and since he's taken over the job. So puts everything into perspective, really.
Leroy, a lot of people have been talking about the wider issue of this and the support networks within football. In your view, are they good enough?
Well, it's a tough question to ask, but if you ask me straight, I'd have to say no. You know, football is a very close-knit sport. You make some great friends in football, and obviously it's always a sort of group dynamic. And with the group dynamic comes a certain way of behaving. But within that, you know, you make great friends. You know, you share a room with someone for many years, and you share a lot of things. A lot of things with one person. My best friend is a footballer, and that's come from that, from being involved in the sport. So, but you know, I just wondered. I've always thought that you know, in terms of retirement of players, you know, the average age of players is around 27, 28, and there should be some sort of counselling coming out of football to help you to deal with that. To help with that transition, because you know, 27, 20 is a ridiculously young age to be termed to be retired, and footballers, on the most cases, have to deal with that themselves or just with their families. But some professional help or some guidance, so I don't think would go amiss.
Jamie Forrester, a former teammate of Gary Speed, is with us. Do you agree with that, Jamie?
I do. I mean, it's people look at footballers and you know, and see what such a great life a footballer has, and I mean, I've been fortunate enough to play football for 18, 19 years, and it is a great life, but you are very young when you come out of it, and there are issues that lie ahead for such a young person. I mean, I've been out of the game for 2 years now, and there is a bit of a reality check on life, really, when you do come out of it. You know, you are in a bit of a bubble as a footballer, and this has maybe highlighted the fact that, you know, there are issues that we face as individuals. Obviously, footballers are very well paid, and you know, we're not taking that away. But there are other issues in life that footballers have to get used to. And I think we don't know what Gary was going through, you know, in his last moments. But clearly, there was something that was affecting him. And you would imagine now that there will be other footballers or ex-footballers out there that may be having issues that now might feel free to come forward and try and, you know, resolve these issues with some help.
Yeah, I totally agree, Jamie. I mean, you know, Jamie, you said you played 18, 19 years. I've always had a problem with football, always saying, well, there's a problem with a player, no matter what it is, the way to sort it out is to get him to play. You know, but a football match is only 90 minutes. What does he do after that? And what does he do when he retires and can't play football anymore?
It is. I mean, it's something that all footballers have to think about. Unfortunately, we don't think about it until we stop playing, and we're kind of thrown into the real world. And it might seem like we've been wrapped in cotton wool for so long, Leroy, but that's kind of how it is, isn't it? I mean, as a footballer, everything's done for you, everything's looked after for you. You know, you've got guaranteed money, even in the summer when you're not training and when you're not playing, you get paid. And these are things that you get used to over the years, and then you're suddenly thrust into the real world, and these things just aren't there anymore. And you know, there's a lot of adulation paid to footballers from people worldwide, really. And I think once you're out of that bubble, it's a different world. And it certainly took me a little while to get used to. I'm not saying that I don't enjoy my life, because I do, but perhaps there are things that we can do, or maybe the PFA are able now to offer some support. I don't know. I suppose it's their responsibility to offer some sort of support for any players that come up with issues such as this.
Yeah, well, there have been a couple of high-profile cases that have come into the public domain recently. It was only last weekend, of course, that a Bundesliga referee, Babak Rafferty, attempted to commit suicide before a match. He admitted to suffering from depression, which left him feeling, as he said, unable to deal with the public pressure surrounding his job. The former Liverpool striker Stan Collymore has spoken out on Twitter just in the last couple of days, talking about his battle over the years with depression. And then, of course, it's now 2 years since the German goalkeeper Robert Enke tragically committed suicide. Let me welcome Susanna Strong into the conversation. She is the author of the Footballers Guidebook, a publication that has been released and given to footballers in relation with the PFA, the Professional Footballers Association in this country. Just tell us a little bit about your experiences, Susanna.
Well, as far as the Footballers Guidebook came out, with one of the most difficult things, it's just interesting hearing the previous people talking and what they were saying, because one of the hardest things that we found about researching and writing the book was that it was really, really difficult to get any footballer to talk to us about mental health and about some of the problems that have just been discussed now. So, I mean, the very famous cases, you know, there's Stan Collymore, there's Paul Gascoigne, there are a few names, but by and large it was very, very hard to get people to come out and talk. And then we began to realise just how much mental health, you know, does come into play in football, but how difficult it is for people to recognise it and also to seek help for it.
Susanna, you know, it's really interesting because when I heard of the news today, the first thing I thought about was Dave Clement, who used to play for QPR, because I played for QPR a little way after. Dave, I think, died in 1982. And I thought, why hasn't anything been done since then?
Yeah.
What was the trigger for you getting this guidebook together?
Well, I think the trigger was exactly the fact that we knew that there were a number of cases, I mean, really, you know, big names, and suddenly the talk wasn't of football, it was about all the other stuff that was in the media, you know, the sort of the gambling, drink stories, drug stories, whatever, you know, linked to various big names in football. And I think there was a realisation that there were a lot of, you know, not just high profile, but, you know, players, you know, in all the different, you know, sort of echelons of football who were having problems, but there was no sort of mechanism, no way for them to be able to speak out. And also there's a huge amount of stigma and taboo around mental health. And it struck me when I started doing the research for the book, it's extraordinary sport where there's all the training and you get people to the most sort of absolute physical perfection, you know, and yet there's no attention paid whatsoever to sort of to the mental health of footballers, and they have nowhere to go, you know, when the pressure gets too much. When, as you were talking before about, you know, retirement and how that can affect players, I think when you come into the game and it's all young players have, isn't it? It's that you train all the time, you're with football, you talk football all the time, and so suddenly when things start going wrong, there is no. You have nowhere to go. You possibly don't even recognise it when things start to go awry. You might drink more, you might gamble. There are various, you know, outlets that players have. But I just think it's very, very hard for players to know where to go and who to turn to when things, you know, when they start feeling rough.
Yeah, Ronnie Reng, who wrote the book about Robert Enke and his battle against depression, talked about an achievement-oriented society in football, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Does football do enough to help its own? In just a couple of minutes here on Sports World. Have your say. Hello, you're watching Sports World. Have your say. We're asking whether or not football does enough to help its own when people are having problems after the sudden death of the Wales manager Gary Speed at the age of just 42. I've got Leroy Rosenior with me in the studio. Susanna Strong is with me, an author of the Footballers Guidebook. And let me welcome Paul Farmer to the conversation. He's the Chief Executive of mental health charity Mind. Paul, do you think football does enough?
I don't think it does. There's huge pressure on young and old footballers, as we've heard in the discussion already. I think it is slowly being recognised. Mental health is slowly being recognised. Football is no different from any other community. 1 in 4 of us will experience a mental health problem, and I think there are certain aspects of the pressures of living in a modern day professional football era, which means that number is almost certainly higher in reality. The pressures and strains are there. We have been doing some work with both the FA and the Premier League to encourage more openness about mental health, because I think that's where you start. You start by talking about it, and you start by opening up about it. And I think if there is perhaps anything that might or maybe must come out of the incredible scenes we've seen today, it is that perhaps a recognition that something should be done about mental health in the football community more widely.
Well, it's really interesting. Susanna was talking about, you know, the pressure of a young player going into a football club, being a young player, and all he's got is football. So there's obviously pressure within a football club and that environment. But what about the pressure from fans who say, look, he's earning so much money, he's got no right to be depressed? Does that cause pressure as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm a football fan. I put the players that I think are great onto a pedestal like everybody else, and that's what we do. And you know, I think all the way through professional footballers' journeys, there is that fear of failure, isn't there? So if you're a great young kid who's showing great promise and you get spotted and signed by a club, then you're told you're not good enough. There's a fear of failure there. There's the fear of failure almost every Saturday afternoon in terms of the pressure that fans can put on you. And then when you finish your career, there's that fear of what's going to happen next. So there's a responsibility here for everybody to be supported. And I think we've seen in football the increasing presence of sports psychologists who do fantastic jobs in helping people get their heads into the right place. But I think there could be a real opportunity here for more psychology, for supporting people for when maybe things just aren't going so well. And yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a role for the fans as well as a role for the players, and of course a role for management.
Susanna, we're just running out of time. Do you think progress is being made? How has your booklet been received?
Well, what we know is it's gone out to every professional player in the country, and we hope it's been received well. I mean, it is a football book. It has cartoons by Paul Trevelyan, who's well known for Roy of the Rovers and You Are the Ref in The Guardian. So it's really aimed, it is about football, and it's very accessible, very easy to read. Just in what Paul was saying just now, I do think that while there are places like the Sporting Chance Clinic, which is really aimed at sportsmen and women who become, who have mental health problems or other issues such as addiction, whatever. I think the thing now is about prevention. I think our booklet is a start, but I think there's so much more to be done, and I think the message that there needs to be more communication. It needs to be okay to talk about mental health, and I think that needs to start, before people become unwell.
Susanna,
right at the beginning of careers.
Paul, I'm going to have to cut in there because we are running out of time. On the pitch today, there were 2 games, but frankly, they don't seem very important tonight. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
We received confirmation of the sad death of the Gills manager Gary Speed, MB. Along with the world of football, we are devastated by this sad news, and our thoughts and prayers are with Gary's family at this time. Gary Speed enjoyed a fantastic career. He remains the most capped outfield player for Wales, having appeared 85 times at senior level. He played professionally for Leeds United, Everton, Newcastle, Bolton and Sheffield United, with an amazing 535 appearances in the Premier League. He was enjoying outstanding success as Wales team manager, and our thoughts are also with those Welsh internationals on duty today for both Swansea City and Aston Villa. In the great tradition of the great game of football, I'd like to ask you now to stand and remember Gary Speed with a minute's silence.
It is a sad day. I played with him when I just came through the ranks and made my debut for Bobby Robson, and obviously, like I said, Speedo, who was who all helped me through and helped the young lads through. He was an absolute machine, best professional in football. So it's just a sad day.
I remember my school team in Sheffield, we were fortunate enough to wear the Leeds kit with a top man on the front. I remember wearing it, he was an absolute legend, and to have had the opportunity to work with him, I think all players that played alongside him learned something. It's just devastating, really.
As a footballer, from one day to the next, you can be moving from one part of the country to another part of the country, and your family tow behind you, and you get on with them things. And as people rightly say, we are very privileged. People going about the financial gain for football, and it's very true. The sums that footballers earn are magnificent. But there always is a price to pay along the way, and you just hope that something like this is something that would never happen again.
It was fantastic to actually see, especially over the last few games, that those visions he had as a manager for what he wanted to do for his country and his team and his players coming to fruition. He was not just as a manager and as a coach. He was a player's manager and a player's coach, but as a teammate. I mean, he was captain of Wales when the likes of Mark Hughes and Ian Rush were still playing.
He was he was a star in the truest sense, and for him at 42 to leave us is such a tragic loss.